Threatened by Spanish activity in the Low Countries, but militarily and economically unable to wage open warfare, she sent aid to rebels in the form of money, supplies, and mercenary volunteers, on the condition that it could not be traced back to England. British covert action waxed and waned over the following centuries. It spanned the political intrigues and proxy wars of the 19th century Great Game, special operations and sponsorship of revolts during the First World War, and mass bribery to control the Arab world in the early 20th century. Recruiting agents of influence to manipulate governments became almost a trademark of British policy in the Middle East, with examples ranging from efforts to discreetly buy elections in Lebanon and Syria, to manoeuvres which ensured the crowning of Faisal I as King of Iraq in 1921. Fluid connections between intelligence officers, policymakers and political fixers enhanced British influence across the Middle East. The Second World War forced Britain to professionalise its approach to covert action and create new shadowy organisations. With war on the immediate horizon, one, known as Electra House, used propaganda to influence German opinion, whilst another, run out of the Secret Intelligence Service, SIS or MI6, focused on the potential for sabotage. Most famously, and once war had broken out, the Special Operations Executive, SOE, supported underground resistance movements and engaged in irregular warfare, sabotage, and special operations deep behind enemy lines. Created in 1940 following the fall of France and tasked to set Europe ablaze, SOE encompassed some 5,000 agents operating in tight secrecy, not only across Europe but in Southeast Asia as well. Meanwhile, from 1941, its sister organisation, the Political Warfare Executive, PWE, used propaganda to damage enemy morale and keep the spirit of resistance alive. Economic warfare also developed increasingly devious methods, including mass forgery to undermine enemy currencies. Neither organisation formally outlived the war, but the promise of peace did not herald the end of covert action. Far from it. Politicians in Westminster and their senior officials in Whitehall still saw Britain as a global power with ambition and responsibility to match. Yet the country was in visible decline, a fate from which its leaders could not hide indefinitely. The era after the Second World War imposed myriad challenges on Whitehall's impecunious elite. Cold War soon emerged, characterised by Soviet subversion and intrigue, nationalist uprisings, unable to be quashed by military force alone, swept across the empire. A new generation of charismatic leaders threatened Britain's trade routes, defence commitments, and economic resources in places such as Iran, Egypt, and Indonesia. More and more colonies became independent, providing openings for hostile regimes to replace long-standing British influence, and terrorist groups attacked targets from Latin America to Northern Ireland to Iraq. At the same time, non-interventionism and anti-imperialism became more powerful forces, not least because swathes of newly independent countries were joining the United Nations, UN. This made it more difficult for Britain to keep up its long tradition of interfering in the affairs of others. Politically constrained and armed with dwindling capabilities, successive governments have struggled to meet these challenges and maintain their complex overseas commitments. Many have turned to covert action as a force multiplier, a silver bullet, a means of closing, or at least concealing, the growing gap between responsibilities and resources. Covert action has provided successive governments with the smoke and mirrors needed to navigate the realities of decline. Like intelligence more broadly, it is a form of state power. Leaders obviously do not take public credit for covert action, but it creates a space in which their interests can be more overtly pursued. Since 1945, Britain has spread misinformation designed to divide and discredit targets around the world, from the Middle East to Eastern Europe, from Southeast Asia to Latin America to the streets of Northern Ireland. It has instigated whispering campaigns and planted false evidence on officials working behind the Iron Curtain. using agents trained.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.